talking about him.
I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like this that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Happy Halloween, everyone. Welcome into Pro Football Today. It's time for the pregame show, or today it actually is a party with myself, Kasey Hudson, Tom Vecchio, and I think we call him Dave Sharapan, but maybe not so much today. Who are you? What's going on there? Welcome in.
I already had the bull stuff, and it's an easy bald guy costume, but I went Alex Caruso a little bit. I mean, it just, shooters shoot. So we're going to take our shot tonight. Thank goodness
There's
we
my
got
effort.
Vecchio. Yeah, I was going to dress up as Kaufman, but now
You
that he's
should
not
have.
here. Well, I was going to do it, but Adam seems like the guy that would get mad at the party if I dressed up like Kaufman. I was going to come on with the sport coat and the fake beard, like, his couple-day growth, and come on. But I feel like Case, he would have got mad. So I didn't want to set him off and have him watch the show later.
He would have loved it. Tom could have pulled it off, though. Tom could have definitely pulled off the Adam.
Tom's kind of like a brother. I mean, they're like almost related.
True. I mean, I was gonna come dressed up as a Jaguar. We just discussed that as one of our running jokes here, but that obviously didn't pan out. Maybe I should just dress up as Adam and come with like an insane SGP that I'd be trying to hit, or a lot of different options.
Yeah, you had so many options. You really did.
We should maybe do that next show. The next show we'll all come dressed up as Adam, but not tell him.
I'll wear a fake mustache.
Crazy parlays. That would be outstanding. Okay, good. I think we're on this.
I can't rock headbands for long, but I had a failed attempt at the Nightmare Before Christmas. So I've got my pinstripe vest on, I got the lace, and then I've got the skeleton on my head. It'll last for 2 more minutes.
Okay. All right. No.
There we go. But it's fine. We're getting everything settled for this Thursday night matchup. Of course, we got the Texans taking on the Jets. And look, it might be Halloween, but I do think that this can be a really spooky matchup because who are the Jets? We're still trying to figure that out. There's been so much excitement between the people, the places, the players, all the things heading into this season, and then yet they're on a bit of a skid right now. Not a bit of a skid, a big skid. But on top of that, then you get some new weapons. Then this injury report comes out not looking too hot. Then the inactives, well, not too sexy either. Then on the other side of the ball, Tom and I have talked about this quite a bit. C.J. Stroud, somewhat of an interesting performance over the last couple of weeks. Not up to his normal, beefy stats that we've seen out of him. So we got a lot to get into tonight, gentlemen. This spread is sitting at 2.5 last I checked, 42.5 when it comes to the total. A lot of people falling into that under total trap again. I call it a trap because every time it feels like a done deal for it to be the under, we see something crazy go down. When it comes to the first half alone, that total is sitting at 20.5. Pretty wild to me. The spread 1.5, Texans total 9.5, Jets total 10.5. So a lot to unpack. So Tom, I'm going to get your initial thoughts when it comes to the Texans marching into Jets territory, hoping to pull off a W tonight and make this a really, really freaky matchup.
Yeah, certainly an interesting game tonight. Obviously, the big news for the Texans is that Stephon Diggs is done for the year with the ACL. They're still without Nico Collins. Vinny, if we have a first or not just first TD, excuse me, any TD score, if we have that graphic that we could show, I think it's really interesting. The Texans team total is sitting at 20.5. And if you're interested in them scoring tonight, Joe Mixon is sitting at -130 or -140 or so, depending on where you can get it. After that, it is a substantial drop-off to Tank Dell at +195, Dalton Schultz at +340, then John Mechie at +500. Even further down, you'll find Xavier Hutchinson, you'll find Robert Woods. So if they're going to be scoring 3 touchdowns, as the implied team total would indicate, there's some serious plus money out there tonight. And I think that's a route a lot of people are going to be looking to. Dalton Schultz has yet to score this season. He is tied for the team lead right now with Tank Dell, both with 38 targets if we, remove Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs from the situation. So there's some serious odds out there to take advantage of tonight. And then also on the Jets side of things, what are we going to see from them? I think defensively, this could be a big game. The Texans' O-line has really, really struggled to protect C.J. Stroud, and bringing pressure is one thing that the Jets are really good at. So really interesting stuff to break down tonight.
Yeah, definitely some great angles that you already laid out there. And plus, when you kind of talked about those numbers and the margins between the guys when it comes to those touchdowns, also, inactives just came out a bit ago. The Jets are going to be without Adams as well as Davis in their secondary, so you're looking at probably a lot of air attack opportunities. And when you talk about opening things up, even though Stroud might not have the time, we saw him comfortably use his legs last year to kind of still extend the play a bit more and find those options downfield. So that might get some other guys involved. That might be a bigger day for Tank Dell. We'll see. As you mentioned, Tom, plenty to get into. But Sports King, I got to take it to you because now sometimes it becomes this bait and switch situation. What are the sports books telling us? Because you got a number of guys where if you're taking things head to head, the matchups aren't there. It feels like this can be obviously a big game for Joe Mixon because of a lot of pressures coming through. We've seen Mixon be consistent across the board regardless. 100-yard performances, even getting in the mix when it comes to receptions. But is it too obvious when we're looking at the injury reports and the players active for tonight?
A little bit, yes. The obvious thing that I know, a game like this where somebody would come up to the counter in Vegas in a book and go, all right, explain something to me. The team that's 6-2 is a 2.5-point dog to a team that's 2-6. And a team in the Jets that's lost their last couple games. But all reports are that sharp money is all over the Jets tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Moved it from the initial number of 1.5 to 2 to 2.5. Couple rules here, couple lessons for everybody listening to learn. Don't believe everything you hear, 1, okay? And 2, sometimes what looks like a treat might be a trick, okay?
Ooh,
this line might
that.
be that. Okay, this might be that Halloween special for you, Huddy. I know you're paying attention and you're dropping all these little Halloween things in there. I'm paying attention. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you. I'm trying to find some better ones to sneak in the mix too, so keep going.
We're going to work it out all hour long. It's just the 3 of us playing it and weave, and we're going to do it. We're just fine. I think you got to be really cautious about that touchdown because, Tom, you're right. There is a lot of plus money out there, but there's a lot of guys and names on that list that I couldn't even spell with spell check, let alone know how to say or know how many times they're going to touch the ball. So be careful for all the tricks there that look like treats because I don't know how many touchdowns are going to be scored in this game. I do lean over, though. Case.
That was about to be
I'm
my
with
question.
You.
Okay.
With you, I'm not buying that. We saw it on Monday night with the Steelers.
Much.
Everybody's going under. No, this is a trapdoor. Game's going over.
Scooby-Doo. I've mentioned Scooby-Doo a couple of times. They're Scooby-Dooing this mix-up because the thing is, when it gets a little too weird when it comes to the matchup and you don't know what to expect, I don't like touching the total, and it has definitely punished anybody who's like, yeah, this is an undergame a number of times. But we've got to take these position groups head-to-head. As you guys know, we do here on Pro Football Today, the pregame show with Kasey Tom. And usually Adam, but Adam's not with us today. That's fine. Regardless, when we take position groups head-to-head, you are Adam. Looking up to Tom.
Great, yeah. I should address this app.
We got to compare these quarterbacks. We got to see what lies ahead for tonight's matchup because we've seen Aaron Rodgers be consistent when it comes to his attempts and usually still hitting some pretty good pass props. But regardless, we know he's got Adams in the mix. Adam wants to make sure he's going to pay rent in New York or New Jersey, wherever he decides to put down his roots. But he's got to make it worthwhile first. So much to get into on the other side. Make sure you stick with us here on SportsGrid for the pregame party. Follow us over at SportsGrid as well, just to make it even easier, and follow these two handsome faces as well. Once we get back from the other side of this break, we take it all head to head, so don't go anywhere.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
It does seem like he really enjoys, people like us, Vinny, talking about him.
I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back to Pro Football Today. It's the pregame show with Kasey Hudson, Tom Vecchio, and Dave Sharapan to get you ready for this Thursday night matchup. Texans taking on the Jets. Who's going to walk out with the win and who's going to walk out with the loss? I know that there's a lot of money stacking on the Jets to finally pull it together, but look, I don't think we can count out the Texans and what they can present challenge-wise in this game. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a good game, I'm hoping. I know last week, Adam, or it was Monday, my goodness, the days. On Monday, Adam called me a stupid liar because I said it's going to be an interesting game. I had to admit it. In the first half, I was a stupid liar. Second half, he was the stupid liar. So we will see what goes down tonight.
No name calling. No
I
name
just
calling.
He's
wanted
not
to
here.
clear the air.
He's not here.
I just wanted to clear the air.
He's
That's
not
all.
here.
Adam's a stupid
Tom's
liar.
right. He's not even here. Oh, all right.
Anyway, 2.5 on the spread, 42.5 on the total. You know you couldn't reel me in. Trying to figure out which direction to take some of these props and these angles while we figure out which team walks away with the W. So, of course, Tom, I got to start with you. We got to take these quarterbacks head to head. Can CJ Stroud get back to some of those numbers that we've seen him execute so well? And is it the obvious that Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to exceed and succeed when it comes to the pass attempts and probably pack up 220-plus passing yards?
I think Rodgers is far more likely to hit that number. I think Stroud is far more interesting because he's missing his 2 top wide receivers. And ultimately, what you expect from Stroud, I think, will help dictate, again, what you expect from the game overall. I like to have things in a certain way. So a lot of people are expecting Joe Mixon to have a big game. And we spoke on Monday night. His number was sitting at 79.5. That has been bet up to 81, obviously, with Diggs being ruled out for the season. So if you're expecting Mixon to go over, you may be expecting CJ Stroud to go under his number. But if you're expecting them both to go over, you should probably be interested in just the game over 42.5. As Dave said, he's interested in the over, because if Stroud is going over and Mixon is going over, he's having 100-plus yards on the ground essentially for Mixon, and he's going over 220 in the air for Stroud. We're probably going to see some points. So the Stroud number I have far less confidence in, just because we're not expecting a whole lot from their passing offense, and I think Mixon should be the main point of their offense plan overall. But I do expect some receivers, obviously, on the Texans to have their share. I am interested in Aaron Rodgers over 1.5 passing touchdowns. We've seen some inefficiency from their passing offense, when specifically in the red zone. And again, we've spoken about teams before. I expect that to flip. Also, the Texans, they're allowing a 70% TD rate in red zone specifically. That is the 3rd worst in the league. If there's any time for the Jets to get on the right side of variance, it could be tonight.
That is a good point. Plus, I didn't take into consideration the fact that Mixon obviously needs to be the workhorse for tonight, but what that would mean for Stroud's numbers. Now, Dave, kind of taking this to you. With that being said, last season, we saw a lot of fearless movement using the legs from C.J. Stroud if he couldn't make it downfield or have the time to get the ball out like he needed to. He's going to be going out a lot more pressure tonight. His numbers haven't particularly been where they need to be. Would we be interested in looking at a C.J. Stroud over 234.5 rush plus passing combined? Because when he's kind of sitting on the weaker side passing-wise, he's sitting at about 175 passing yards, and we know that he can rack up 40 rushing yards.
You would think so, yes, but I think we're going to need a big run to get that. Well, I don't feel like he's going to get a lot of opportunities, but the opportunities he gets, if he can break one, we can get there. I'm with you guys thinking before the game, this is Mixon's night. And I was hoping that Tom said it there, because Tom has been all over. When Tom says the running back's probably going to do something, that's when we do the position groups and we do the head-to-head, I perk up like this when Tom starts talking about the running backs, because that's when he says it's going to be one of those nights, it has been. And I looked at this and I went, man, I don't even know half the guys on Houston's list for receivers. I really don't. And I was going, okay, well, maybe Kasey will come with something with a tight end. I don't know. And I was like, oh, man, I don't see any other way for Houston to have any success in this game other than Mixon. And listen, I never said alt anything in my life, ever.
Ooh.
And I'm going to have a lot of candy and a lot of other things, but this might be one of those alt nights for Mixon. I'm telling you, look at that running back number.
Alting all the things. Well, I feel like we've got the simplicity when it comes down to the quarterback room, but now that we've touched on Joe Mixon, I've got to ask you this, Tom. There's a rumor going around that Mixon is the guy to keep an eye out for at least over 3.5 receptions. He had 4.5. He had 4 receptions last week. He's kind of sitting on the cusp of an average of 3 to 4 receptions per game. Look, pressure's coming in. You got to get the quick ball out. What do we look at when it comes to the receptions?
This is so typical when you bring something up, and I know this from having my wife and my daughters. We're bringing up the running back and the rushing yards, and you take it and switch it to running back receptions.
Yes,
I mean, you've got to make Kasey, what are you doing? You're driving me crazy. I thought we were going to talk about the rushing yards.
Not yet. We were talking about quarterbacks, and quarterbacks do what? Pass the ball. So sticking to the script of the pass.
Sorry.
Look,
okay, stay with
have
it.
your wife and children not told you, we know what we're doing when we start steering the ship in a different direction.
Oh,
yeah.
they tell me every day. They tell me every day. That's fine. I know.
So when it comes to Mixon and the rushing, and Dave, like you said, I'm often very high on a specific player, but I also say at times that sometimes I like betting the secondary or tertiary options because I believe a player's number is too refined, and that's what we have with Mixon. When his number was sitting at 78 or 79, and with the news that Diggs is out, it's also been bet up to 81. So the time to strike on Mixon essentially has passed, and I don't want to bet on a line that has already moved. So I would have loved to bet on his number at 78.5, but now it's 81. And Kasey, as I said on the Monday night post-game show, 2 or 3 yards may not seem like a big difference, but those are 2 or 3 yards that we don't get back. So I actually do like going to some of those secondary options on Houston tonight. I think Mixon will have a big game. We look back at his game log. He has 20-plus carries in 3 games this season. The 2 games that he did not have 20-plus carries was A, the game he got hurt against the Bears, and then B, the game against New England, which was his first game back from that injury. And we also saw Dameon Pierce play a big role. Now, Dameon Pierce is inactive tonight. They still have Dare Ogunbowale in the mix tonight. So I think Mixon will have a game, but it doesn't mean I want to bet on those props tonight just because, again, the lines have moved. So I actually like going to some of the receivers. I think that Tank Dell could be in for a big game tonight. But the tight end from Houston, that is whose night it's going to be. It's going to be a Dalton Schultz game tonight. We'll get to that on the other side of the break.
Ooh, we know I love it when you guys bring up the tight end and I don't have to do all of this like fast talking and like encouraging and like selling. Like sales was never going to be my thing in life. So when I have to sell you guys on things, it stresses me out. But they came correct for Halloween today and they're making it a less of a Scooby-Doo situation. But there's still plenty for us to get into. Don't go anywhere. Stick with us here on SportsGrid TV. We got a quick break coming up.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from 3. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from 3 for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
That hat looks great.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today. It's a party with Kasey Hudson, Tom Vecchio, and Dave Sharapan. But most importantly, it is time for some same game parlay. Now, I know what you're thinking. Adam Kaufman's not here. Tom's been on a roll when it comes to winning SGP, and Dave is the guy who selects the winner. It looks like it's me versus Tom today. It is still Thursday, which means, Tom, do us the honors of getting us started for some same game parlay.
Yeah, I was super close on Monday. Russell Wilson legitimately could have had 3 or 4 passing touchdowns, and he had one call back due to a penalty, and then one was called back because Pickens somehow didn't get 2 feet down. He got 1 foot down twice. Obviously, that's not on his. It was just a crazy play to begin with. So let's go to today. It's sitting up at plus 499, a little bit higher than normal, but over 42.5. We'll just start with that. I'm expecting a good amount of points. We have seen their defenses struggle at times, and despite not some of the offensive options being there for the Texans, I expect there still to be some scoring. Devontae Adams TD for the Jets. They went and traded for him for a reason. This is sitting up at plus 155. We've seen some good red zone targets for him over the past 2 weeks, or his first 2 weeks with the Jets. He has 15 total targets, is yet to find the end zone. Again, they brought him in for a reason. Like, he has that connection with Rodgers. It's going to happen against a Texans defense that has allowed 11 receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. That is the second most in the NFL. And then finally, let's turn to Dalton Schultz, the starting tight end for the Texans, over 40.5. I really, really like him in this matchup. We'll talk about him all to 50 plus at plus 145. That's on the SGP. We'll talk about it in a later segment. Over the past few weeks, we've seen Hunter Henry go 5 for 45 against the Jets defense. Pat Fryer with 2 for 51. Dalton Kincaid going 6 and 51. That's receptions and yards. The Jets have a clear deficiency in the middle of their defense. And now Dalton Schultz, as I said at the top, is tied with Tank Dell with 38 targets, which lead the Texans now because we have Diggs and Collins out of the lineup. I think this is a Dalton Schultz game for the Texans tonight.
Oh, Dave, there it is. There it is. Okay, gentlemen, get my SGP up here because I'm feeling really good about it.
I can't wait because I know you better win this, because if I pick Tom over you, you're going to be mad at me for
the
weeks.
last time the last time I threw my crown in the ring, I won. So let me remain humble, though. I know the deal. First and foremost, over 3.5 receptions for Joe Mixon, plus 114 there. I already basically made my case on that one. 4 receptions previous game while getting 105 on the ground. So when we're looking at the workhorse of the Texans roster, it's going to be Mixon, which means a little bit of everything mixed in. Haha. Then you got Conklin, over 2.5 receptions. This is the guy who they're going to try to make some middle of the field passes with, but when the Jets have found themselves in sticky situations, who's been their guy or their target in the red zone? It's been Conklin. So whether or not he gets a touchdown, I definitely see at least 2 attempts throughout the night to get him the ball. I think he can easily hit the over 2.5 receptions. And then last but not least, Devontae Adams, over 5.5 receptions. I know I keep making the joke that the guy is trying to figure out whether or not he wants to pay rent in New York, New Jersey, whatever his fever may be. But regardless, that means that while they're trying to catch a W finally, while they're trying to figure out how to actually execute, close the door, walk away with a win, not let a team in the fourth quarter, they've got to get the job done. Adams and Rodgers has to have that chemistry. Adams has to be sold on buying real estate in the tri-state area, wherever you want to be. And I think it's going to come with a big game tonight, which means at least 6 receptions. So that is my conviction for the night. It's all the receptions. It doesn't get spookier than this, but I'm pretty sold on the value of what? What does it say? Plus 692. It adjusted. It got higher. It got juicier, folks. So come on, Dave. You're a smart man.
Oh, really? I'm slightly uncomfortable with the situation I'm in right now. Kasey, you have to promise me, if I don't pick you, are you still going to talk to me, let alone forget next week, next segment? Or is my mic cut and I'm out forever if I say...
Do I tell production, get him out? You know what? You wore Vegas Golden Knights gear the same night they played my Tampa Bay Lightning, and we're friends again. Like, we're cool. So...
Okay. All right.
I will say I'm mature enough to be like, whatever. Okay. I say that with a freaking headband on my head. Go ahead.
Take a deep
Talk
breath.
to me.
I have a headband too. Listen, Tom didn't get the memo about the headbands. I have a headband on too. You have 3 overs combined, despite the fact that 2 of them are kind of likely. I'm very, very nervous. I'm picking Tom's. I like Tom's. Mm-hmm. I think Tom's fits more game script. It's not personal. Stop looking at me like that. Please stop. Please.
Okay. I didn't say anything yet. I didn't even catch a fever yet. You know what? I'm going to save my comments for the other side of this quick break, so make sure you don't go anywhere, football fans, because you want to stick with us here, Pro Football Today on SportsGrid TV.
it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all season, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take!
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Back at it with Pro Football Today. It's the pregame show with Kasey Hudson, Tom Vecchio, and Dave Sharapan. And guess what, guys? Dave and I are still friends. He did not pick my SGP. He will regret it moments later, but it's totally fine because we get to be here again with you guys on a Monday. We get to grovel and do our apologies and all those things on social media. So make sure you're following us over on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's at SportsGrid. Nice and simple, but that's fine. Tom's going to keep
Isn't Monday? Don't we have a Bucks game on Monday? Bucks Chiefs, right?
We sure do.
Oh,
that's gonna be great.
Oh boy,
we're in for it.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are in for it. A lot of emotions behind that matchup because, as you guys know, I'm not a Chiefs hater, but also I'm not on the wagon. And then the Bucks are obviously my team, but we'll save all of that energy for Monday. You won the SGP, so that's fine. We started talking about Joe Mixon. I wanted to make it a passing conversation. Dave called me out, so here we go. Let's take the running backs head to head. I know, you're so used to this, Dave. Let's take the running backs head-to-head. We've got Joe Mixon, who we know can have a big ground game versus the Jets tonight, but also Breece Hall had a fantastic game. He's had a number of fantastic games after we weren't sure if, him and Aaron Rodgers were vibing much. So, and it didn't just last on the ground. No, he was the guy on the ground as well as through the air. So, Tom, talk to me when it comes to the props, the angles, and the most favorable point of view when it comes to the running back group and conversation.
I certainly think that continuing to go to Breece Hall, rushing plus receiving is a solid way. We saw Braylon Allen involved, good amount early in the season. He hasn't been involved as much as of late. I think they're going to continue to hopefully condense the offensive usage a little bit. We should note that Alan Lazard has also been placed on IR for the Jets. So, one of Rodgers' favorites targets is no longer there. They obviously still have Mike Williams. Whether he plays a big role or not is yet to be seen, but we should continue to see Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall be the main three options with, Tyler Conklin sprinkled in a little bit. We'll see a little bit of Braylon Allen, but ultimately the best option for the Jets backfield is going to that rushing plus receiving for Breece Hall. If they fall behind, we'll know he'll certainly play a role in the passing game. When it comes to Joe Mixon, as I said, I think he can absolutely get to 20-plus total carries and over 100 yards. It doesn't mean I'm willing to bet those numbers, though. So I expect Mixon to have a very, very high touch rate when it comes to their offense tonight. I just don't know if I want to be going there in terms of props. I don't want to go to him minus 130, minus 140, whatever for a touchdown. As I said multiple times, stop laying minus money when it comes to touchdown bets. That's just the way I do things. That's really all I have to say about the running backs. I think they could both have great games tonight.
The only place I would challenge you that on is Like It, Love It, Leave It, which we will have coming up here shortly. Dave, Tom did mention beforehand a couple segments ago just how the lines have changed for Mixon and where he would have preferred to grab it versus where it's leading to now. Where do you see Joe Mixon's ground game coming in tonight? Is the 60 to 70 range where the sweet spot is, or is that 70 to 80 a little too close to call as it has significantly changed up a bit?
I don't know what it is, Case, because maybe I'm in Kaufman's spot on the magic wall or what, but I'm sitting here scrolling through the game specials, okay? And I'm looking because we had a really good talk during the break, which I'll bring to the table right now, about this number for Mixon's attempts. If you make it below 20, you're going to get an overload of money on the over. If you make it 20 and a half, it's perfect because it gives you that pause where you go, man, 20 is a lot. But Tom said it. He's gotten it over 4 out of the 5 games. In the one game, he didn't, it was because the game script didn't dictate that he touched the ball much. So I'm going through this thing and I'm going, what would Kaufman say right now? Like, I know he would come up with something. And I said that game specials for rushing. Joe Mixon to record 10-plus rushing yards in each quarter. I mean, how does he – if his total is 80 and a half, how is he not going to get a first down 10 yards worth of rushing in each quarter? It's plus 200. I mean, that might be – I mean, that's so plus $2. You get some plus money, and you don't have to lay that over 80 and a half, or you don't have to go with those rushing attempts. Something like that, breaking it up into quarters. I mean, I don't want to pretend like I'm Kaufman because he's definitely his own guy, but that's pretty good, isn't it?
I do like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, bring some sensibility to the table, Tom. Is this something worth looking at for the game, depending on game script?
I mean, 10 plus in each quarter. That's pretty good. Like, theoretically, like, I don't like to find a lot of middles, which, you can certainly do in live betting, but theoretically, you could bet the under at 81 and a half or 82, whatever it is, and still get 10 plus in each quarter and hit the over. So you could, do that. It is a double again. You are, working against yourself because if he's getting 10 plus in the fourth quarter, they may be up, and that means he could have already cruised past that number. Like, that is certainly a possibility. So these spots, if you're willing to put in the work to figure out the math, you can certainly do that. And I always talk about this, not to go into too much of a tangent, but you can do this just because the baseball ended yesterday. If you're looking at the Dodgers to win the series -1.5, and you had them winning direct series outcome, that means the series also goes under 6.5 games, whatever it might be. So you can find heavy correlation in a lot of the bets if you're willing to put in the time to figure out the math of saying I can hit this, and if this other thing happens, I'll have all three and it'll be a clean sweep.
Okay.
This is what's called a correlated parlay case, and it's going to get Tom on all the list of the books, and he's going to get in trouble, and he's going to get a blacklist. But listen, it can't get everybody that's watching the show, so that's fine. But that's really good information there. Kasey, I can't remember. Tom did say the World Series ended yesterday. Can you remind me who won the World Series, Case? I can't remember.
I think it was the LA Dodgers from what I saw.
Who'd they play again?
Trying to get me in trouble. I live here now. I can't talk about
that's right. The Yankees. Sorry, Yankee fans.
Look,
talking to you, Jack.
We have a handful of them here at SportsGrid, of course, and you got to be nice. They're in mourning right now. Come on.
What are they going to be like when Soto leaves?
That was a bit of a tough conversation because he did not sound happy. They told me what he said in his post game, and I was just like, yikes, he's going somewhere else. Clearly going somewhere else. I'm so sorry, New York fans. I'm trying to be as sensitive as possible. So we've kind of touched on the quarterback room. We have touched on the running backs. Tom, you kind of already started to kind of talk about target share and what we're going to expect out of the Jets more so, and then the tight end love. Always love the tight end love. But let's break it down a little deeper when it comes to the wide receivers, because as you saw in my SGP that we're still going to find out tonight is the real winner. You got Devontae Adams because now you have Lazard out. with him being out, with the expectation of Adams, with the synergy that we're trying to find target share-wise between Rodgers and company, what are you seeing tonight, or what are you foreseeing tonight, or favorably prop-wise when it comes to the arsenal, in a way, that Aaron Rodgers has to try to secure a W for this Jets team tonight?
Yeah, I think, especially when you're looking at the odds, it's 59.5, 58.5 or so for both Wilson and Adams. Like, it's just a 1A, 1B scenario where they could both go for 60. They could both go for 70. One's at 70, one's at 50, 80, 60, whatever it might be. Like, it's super close. I think if you want one player, you simply go with his props. They're sitting at 58.5. I think alting either of them up to 70, like that's not that much more. I think that is pretty reasonable, especially if we're expecting the over. For the Texans side of things, Tank Dell is their new number one wide receiver, but we will see Xavier Hutchinson play a good amount. He played on 50% of snaps in each of the or more in each of the last 3 full games since Nico Collins has been out. And in the game that Nico Collins got hurt, he played on 71% of snaps. So it's going to be Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, and John Mechie. And I specifically like John Mechie to go over 19.5 receiving yards, again, expecting a good amount of points. He should be playing on a good amount of snaps, especially if they're in a passing game script, at least a good amount.
All right. I like the sound of that. So we've got plenty more to get into. Probably try to line up these tight ends a little bit, and then we got to get into the defensive conversation because we do have some injuries for the Jets when it comes to their defense secondary, more importantly. And then we've seen some holes when it comes to defense for the Texans. So stick with us here on SportsGrid TV. You're watching Pro Football Today. It's the pregame show with Kasey, Tom, and Dave. Shout out to whoever gave Tom the nickname TV and then DS, because as long as I've known Tom, never called him TV. Don't go anywhere. We'll stick with you on the other side of this quick break.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump, his release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Back at it with Pro Football Today. It's the pregame show with Kasey Hudson, Tom Vecchio, and Dave Sharapan, or TV, as I will now never unsee. All right, it's time for us to continue the best bets train rolling. And again, I mean, look, I may have lost SGP, but let's see if I get better luck with some like it, love it, and leave it. Let's roll it, guys. All right. I know that you went first for SGP because it is Thursday, but I just feel better if you continue to go first as well, Tom. So hit us with your long shot of the day. Let's see where Tom
Yeah,
goes.
well, I know what yours is, and I don't know if Dave's going to like it, but like it, love it, leave it. Devontae Adams for 25-plus receiving yards in each half. I think this goes along with where his prop is sitting at. We're looking at, in the upper 50s. Again, I'm expecting some points, as I spoke about, over 42.5 when it comes to the SGP. Again, he is their option that they traded for a reason, like more practice with Rodgers. They're living together. They're doing this. They're doing that. And, one of my prevailing themes is that we're going to see Devontae Adams score tonight because they need to get him involved in the offense. We've seen 15 targets over the past 2 weeks. We're seeing the Texans' secondary struggle at times. I think Devontae Adams is certainly in for a nice game tonight.
Ooh, does this mean that we liked part of my SGP, Tom, for the over 5.5 receptions in order to get him involved?
I mean, that's certainly fine. Again, as I'll always say, yards are always easier than receptions. If one of those receptions is a touchdown, he grabs a couple, yards in the first half, yards in the second. I'm not against your SGP. I just want to make that clear. I'm totally fine with Devontae Adams having 15 catches tonight.
Tom's I didn't choose me to win. Stop coming at me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not coming.
No, he's got to do the shows with you a lot more than me. So I understand, Tom. I know exactly what you're doing there. Do not make Kasey mad because you got to talk to her. I only get Mondays and Thursdays.
I am not that bad.
I'm not saying
we
you
just
are.
Gotta wait till the Rangers and the Lightning play, and then it'll be a different story.
Oh, then it's all bets are off. Then all bets are off.
Right. Things can get really can. I won't pretend like I'm like the greatest.
Casey, let's stop burying the lead. Let's get your LOL.
What do you have, Case?
Wow, Tom has figured me out. We know each other too well now. All right, here we go, gentlemen. Are you ready for my like it, love it, leave it? Because everybody's gonna love it, not leave it. I'm taking Tank Dell for a first half touchdown at plus 430. Come on, we're talking about his how he's going to get involved here. We're talking about a Texans team that wants to make a statement, set the tone, get the game going. They've got 2 quarters to get this man in the freaking end zone. Plus 430. Come on.
I had this
is a
ready.
Smooth hat.
Yeah, this is it's my ode to, you guys won't know him. Telly Savalas was a bald guy. I had a couple bald guy costumes. He had a lollipop and he was a detective. So while you guys were going to sit here and give me these, I was going to sit here and listen to the clues. Case, yours is easy.
Love it.
I want to leave it. No, sorry, Case. I'm leaving yours. All right. I don't think he's going to score. Not only do I not think he's going to score, but he's definitely not going to score in the first half. So
are we having the same show tonight? Are we on? Are we here? Are we all here?
We're here.
Adams,
we're here.
Inactive.
We're here.
Davis, inactive.
Yes.
Open space for the air. Tank Dell needing to get some reps in. Got a touchdown the other week.
It's Joe Mixon night. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but you can only Joe Mixon so much.
I'm leaving yours. All right? Hold on. Because I have to ask you a like it, love it, or leave it, because I have one that I wanted to ask both of you. Tom, I really, really, really like yours. I really like it, but I don't love it. I like it. Okay, so we're at a like with Tom. We're at a leave it with Kasey. I'll give you guys an opportunity to leave mine. Okay, interception prop tonight. Aaron Rodgers.
You know we're not going to leave that.
Well, I mean, this is part of the game. We like it, love it, or leave it.
Yeah.
Kasey, I will ask you first because you've been making Tom go first all night long. No. To throw an interception, yes, minus 102. Do you like it, love it, or leave it?
I love it. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to Aaron Rodgers. So while he still does well in his attempts and the other flattering things, the turnovers have just been a part of his script as of late. So I'll give you the love, even though on Dia de los Muertos I'm not feeling it, but that's fine. That is fine. Tom, are you taking?
Tom, what do you think?
I would absolutely agree. Again, I'm leaning on the over. I don't necessarily expect this to be a lower scoring game. I think the attempts will be up for Rodgers. I think the attempts will be up for CJ Stroud. If this turns into a bit of a shootout, we do have tanks and Jets going against each other. I am on board with Rodgers being at a higher volume to throw an interception.
All right. When we get the It's the seal of approval from Tom. We know that it's a lock. So at least something's on the same page for the three of us. An interception coming in hot for Aaron Rodgers. Actually, no, let me cut you guys some slack because you brought the tight end to the conversation before I even had to do all the sprucing and the sales pitching, right? So, Tom, taking it back to you for 2 seconds. What do we expect out of Conklin tonight? Because we talked about Schultz and his role and the opportunities he will have, but any interest towards Tyler Conklin?
I think it's okay. Ultimately, like, it's just not one of the props that I love tonight. I'm not going to leave Tyler Conklin prop again, especially if we're, expecting a good amount of points in this game. I just think that he will be at best playing the fourth option, right? It's going to be Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and then Tyler Conklin at best. Like, he's not going to exceed one of them in my mind when it comes to offensive usage. Again, maybe we see a little bit of a role for Braylon Allen. We see a little bit of a role for Mike Williams. So he's competing with two other players for the fourth best option on the Jets offense because we have these two top receivers that are sitting up at 58, 59 receiving yards. So Conklin could absolutely have a tight end, which could have a tight end. He is a tight end. He'd have a touchdown, which I know that you like, but he could also hit the under on his yardage, which I think is certainly a possibility. You could hit both of them.
All right,
I feel like we're playing good cop, bad cop with Kasey. Like, and she's sitting there on this because I don't think I would have to say no. Conklin, I don't want anything to do with, but I'm the bad cop tonight. Sorry, Kasey. Go ahead.
Wow. I mean, but you're doing it to yourself. Like, you knew that my SGP rocked, and you still did not. You knew that you should have loved the long shot, and you still did not. We knew that the tight end conversation was going to be spectacular, but don't you go anywhere, SportsGrid fans, because Dave's going to get correct on the other side of this quick break. Stick with us here on SportsGrid.
Fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, the pregame show with Kasey Hudson, Tom Vecchio, and Dave Sharapan. And yes, we're all still friends, believe it or not. But I got to throw it back to you for just a second, Dave. Look, this is growth. I am being a non-unhinged human being. Talk to me about this tight end not love, because you got cut off there by the break. We tried to give you some time to mull over what you were saying, second chances and all. So what was your vibe when it came to Tyler Conklin tonight? And Tom broke down the yardage and the potential target share. You're going to say what now?
I'll put
What
on the
say
dark
you?
glasses in
What
case
say
anybody
you?
is watching that actually remembers who Kojak is. And
Shout out to my mom.
Shout out to your mom. Thank you for that. You made my day with that text. I agree exactly with what Tom said. I don't know if he's going to see the ball, Case. Like, I don't know how many opportunities he's going to have. That yardage number is unbelievably low. And his capability of having a big game or a big gain, like on one play, I don't think he's that guy. Now, again, who am I to say that? But I'm just telling you what I think. So it's not personal. Don't make it personal. We're here. Like we're hockey, brought us together. Like we're here. So don't get upset.
I thought
we're good. We're line mates. Come on.
I thought you're finding a spot in the bottom six real fast. But as for perspective, the last 2 games, Conklin has found the end zone for his squad. Why is that? Because I don't know. The Jets thought they were going to beat the Steelers and they fell short there. And then let's see what Conklin's numbers were when they needed to rely on somebody else and try to bring in some disguises and get things heating up there.
Weren't good.
It was 4 receptions. 4 receptions for Conklin. I didn't take him for yards. I took him for receptions. He only got 7 yards, but he found the end zone. That was versus the Steelers.
He had 7 yards and he had 4 receptions?
I'm not touching yardage. I went with over 2.5 receptions because the Jets let up an average of 2.6 receptions to the tight end group specifically. Then the Patriots. That was supposed to be a lock-in game for this Jets team, right? Not so much. Then you've got Conklin for 3 receptions. That goes over the 2.5, 42 receiving yards, and a tutty yet again. So that's how I plead my case when it comes to Tyler Conklin and the tight ends for the night.
I hope you win that one. Right, good job.
Watch me go through all this trouble and it just be a bust. But regardless, we're all still friends here. I love you, gentlemen. But it's time for some final thoughts before we move to more best bets here on Pro Football Today. So, Tom, get us started with your final thoughts.
Let's go to Dalton Schultz if we have the best bets graphic. Like I said, I like him over 40.5. I also like him over 50.5. I'll bet plus 144. I think this is very reasonable. We've talked about it before, and I'll date back to the Javonte Williams game against the Saints for the Broncos. I said, a player can't be this involved in an offense and simply not score. And that's what we have for Dalton Schultz. He has yet to find the end zone this season. His touchdown odds are up at plus 400, which I know are certainly very, very high. But again, now he is the de facto number 1 or 1A, 1B receiving option for the Texans alongside Tank Dell. So if we are expecting points in this game, which I certainly am, I like him to go over 40.5. I like him to go for 50 plus. And I also like Schultz for a TD at plus 400. And you want this to be a very measured play. Don't want to be putting too much on this. It could be a quarter unit play. So obviously a very low risk. But again, when we're expecting points and we have a player that is this involved, I expect CJ Stroud to look to him and not to look to John Mechie or Xavier Hutchinson when he gets to the scoring. I think those players can be involved when it comes to a yardage perspective. But when it comes to scoring, it's going to be Joe Mixon, it's going to be Dalton Schultz, and then it's going to be Tank Dell.
All right. I'm excited to see how things shake up. Kojak, what do you got for us? Final thoughts.
Kojak's one of his signature lines was "Who loves you, baby?" All right, and he had a lollipop every time. So I got the lollipop, and Case, who loves you, baby, and Mrs. Hudson, you as well. I think the game's going over. Okay, I think we're going to see some success tonight for Joe Mixon, and if you get one candy tonight, you get to pick one. You reach in a basket of whatever it is you want. You can only pick out one. It's either peanut M&Ms or Snickers. That's my 2-game parlay tonight for Halloween. I like that, Case.
Somebody better bring me some peanut M&Ms or Sour Patch Kids. Doesn't matter what color they are. I will kill the bag. I have had Sour Patch Kids for dinner because I'm an adult, and that has been my routine since covering the hockey for the past 6 years. So make sure you follow these 2 gentlemen over on X. You'll see us chatting with each other over on X as well. Make sure you're following SportsGrid yet again on X. But coming up next, it's time to get into some more best bets, but with the one and only Joe Lisi. And hopefully he's on my side because tonight was just not my night, but they kept things spooky, and I can appreciate them immensely for that as always. You'll also catch me and Tom Vecchio for the halftime show. So once again, hang out with these guys over on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, and stick around for me and Joe Lisi, best bets, and more here on SportsGrid.
that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump, his release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today. As promised, it's the pregame show now with Kasey Hudson and Joe Lisi. Look, I didn't have much luck talking with Dave and Tom, but look, I still love them. That's fine. Joe.
Yes, come.
Tend to be more of like a therapy session. This becomes more of a safe space after I deal with those two, usually 3. Regardless, initial thoughts of this matchup, because it couldn't be a better matchup for Halloween for the most part.
Right.
Because we don't know what to expect out of the Jets. You got a lot of people riding the line that they're going to be able to pull off a W tonight, but the Texans are no scrubs. Like, they got a lot of attention entering the season. A lot of people have them kind of going pretty far this year, especially in the postseason. C.J. Stroud's numbers have kind of shifted over the last couple of weeks. Either way, where do we go with tonight's game?
I still like the Texans, Casey. They're coming off the 23-20 win, but no cover over Indianapolis. They can run it with Joe Mixon. They still have the better quarterback heading into this matchup, C.J. Stroud. They're 6-2 overall. Have a defense that contained Josh Allen and some of the better quarterbacks throughout the regular season. And I said it last week, I bet Patriots. I'm not backing down now. The books are suggesting that the New York football team, the New York Jets, are the team that actually won 5 straight as opposed to lost 5 straight. I can't back a team, even though they're favorites. I think the books establish lines to make sharp bettors think. We're all thinking about why the Jets are favored in this matchup. I'm not buying the noise. I'm taking the Texans with the points.
Oh, I like this already. Okay, a lot of people have gotten hoaxed when it comes to this whole total conversation. 42.5 is where we're sitting on the total. Some people are like, oh, well, if it's going to be this big battle between these two pretty decent teams in some conversations, under, right? But then you have the opportunity for a number of shootouts. You got 2 guys in the secondary for the Jets that are inactive. That's being Adams and Davis. And then you've got some bang-ups also, or some holes when it comes to the Texans secondary. So you're seeing a lot of air opportunities between these two.
You are. I have no feel on the total. I do lean to the under, and that's untypical for me. Typically, I would say let's halt this to 50.5, 51. That doesn't necessarily mean we get into the mid-30s after the first quarter. In the mid-first quarter, I wouldn't jump on the over. I do give the edge of the passing attack to C.J. Stroud, even though Nico Collins isn't there and Stephon Diggs is out of that lineup now with an ACL. Look for Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson, secondary wide receivers, to step up. But I'm still on Big Tank Dell, only 4 receptions, 35 yards last week, 56.5. I think he gets to 80+.
Okay, I can't wait to ask a couple questions when it comes to Tank Dell and his role tonight. But get us started on some of your favorite plays or best bets of this matchup.
So I am on Tank Dell, 80+. It's like plus 220 for him to hit that number. Like I said, 4 receptions, 35 yards. I do believe that also Xavier Hutchinson over the 19.5. You know, possession type of wide receiver. He could potentially get to 25 or 40+. If we're looking to the New York Jets, Devontae Adams, anytime touchdown, just because we're in prime time. He hasn't lived up to expectations since he's come over from Las Vegas, and Aaron Rodgers force-feeding him the football, especially in red zone opportunities. I like him. But Braylon Allen, 22.5. Last week his number, 18.5. He blows through that with 34.5. The running game is going to be critical if you're back in the New York Jets. Can't be Aaron Rodgers, has to be Breece Hall, but I like also Braylon Allen tonight.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because when I was looking at some of the angles for tonight's matchup, some of the, let's say, breakdowns and analysts were like, oh, by the way, Aaron Rodgers with 44 rushing yards. And I'm like, no one's looking at Rodgers. Like, he might have the slide somewhat under control, but nobody should be looking at Rodgers when it comes to that category. I love the fact that you're looking at the secondary, guys. It's usually a position that Tom ramps up and brings attention to as well. Breece Hall, you mentioned him. I don't alt many things, but I'm thinking to myself, the numbers that he put up in the past 2 weeks and the fact that they're going to have to figure out what their balanced attack looks like tonight, I like Hall for rush plus receiving of 110 plus yards at plus money of 125. Alted it up because we've seen a number of ways where he can grab a lot of yardage, and he's done it in both receiving and
it's
rushing.
a great look. What did he have? Over 100 receiving against Pittsburgh, 80 yards on the ground last week. So he is definitely the number one option. Will take the pressure off for Aaron Rodgers, especially off the offensive line, if they could stay in manageable third down situations. If they're in third and long, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I give the benefit to Houston's front seven, but Breece Hall, in terms of 100-plus rushing and receiving, nice look.
I like it. See, we're already on the same page. This is where I heard some crickets. I don't think it's that outlandish.
Talk to me. What do you got?
Joe Mixon, over 3.5 receptions. This also is coming in at plus money, plus 114. He had 4 receptions last week. We've seen the quick pitches off to him whenever Stroud's under pressure and wants to go to Mixon and doesn't want to make it a ground situation. I thought that this could be playing into tonight.
I like the look, especially if New York is aggressive, trying to get the football out of C.J. Stroud's hands. If they blitz him early and often, right, or especially early in the game, that could be checkdowns to Joe Mixon. We're talking about a back that does catch the football, not just this year, but even in his days past with Joe Burrow. So 3.5 receptions, especially if they're leading. He wants to control drives. That could be a look for Joe Mixon in this matchup.
See, I knew you'd put my mind at ease. We saw some wicked things out of Mixon when he was wearing the stripes. Awesome. Now, sticking with Mixon, though, Tom wasn't a big fan of it getting altered up to 81.5 yards on the ground, but in order for them to get any momentum going, while they have some question marks with who they're going to air the ball out to, they being Stroud, I still like him to pick up over 81.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, it's not a bad look, especially if you believe Houston's going to win this game. Second half opportunities, run the football, keep Aaron Rodgers on the sidelines. Joe Mixon, 130 yards a couple of weeks ago against Green Bay, do-it-yourself type of back. So 81 is a doable number tonight, especially if they have the lead in the second half.
Yep, and we saw him pick up 105 on the ground while hitting those 4 receptions through the air. And you mentioned something key, keeping Aaron Rodgers on the sideline. Yep. The Jets have given up a lot of opportunities and a lot of game in that second half there. So I think a lot of teams come into this saying this is the script that we can control after halftime. Another one that I have, Tyler Conklin for a touchdown. I'm grabbing him from the end
taking
zone.
It. I'm not a bad look. Everybody's looking Adams. Everybody's looking Garrett Wilson. Tyler Conklin, a big play tight end, especially in red zone opportunities. Last time, I believe, when they faced the Bills, you were on Conklin or another primetime matchup. He stepped up. So Tyler Conklin is a good look, especially in terms of red zone for Aaron Rodgers.
Has 1 touchdown in his has 2 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Yeah. And when the score is as close as the last couple of games have been, it's been Conklin to kind of wear the cape on that one. I should say that very moderately, though, because we know that the Jets have not been able to close the door when it comes to the victory. And look, I'm going to give the Jets some love here. Aaron Rodgers, over 32.5 pass attempts. The pass attempts are always sitting there, 33, 35, so on and so forth. But versus the Texans, a number of quarterbacks have been sitting at 33-plus when it comes to their attempts.
Yeah, so again, if you believe the Jets are going to lose this game, that means throwing in the second half of this matchup. They're going up against a team that's 6-2 and contain high-powered offenses. And again, if the Jets are going to have success, they need balance. So 32.5, a doable number. I do believe the rushing attack is a little more prevalent in this game, but 32.5, he can get that in a heartbeat.
All right, we'll see what happens. And my last question before we get your final thoughts. They didn't like my like it, love it, leave it either.
Okay.
I had Tank Dell picking up a touchdown in the first half at
I like it.
4:30.
Love it. How about
Thank
that?
you.
Love it. Therapy
Finally.
session. Let's do it.
Finally, some love. This
On
is why we
Halloween.
close out with therapy on Thursdays as well as Halloween. But any final thoughts about this matchup?
Again, I just can't buy into the narrative like this is the Jets' night. Just because they're playing at home, again, they're playing a top team that's not just a division contender in the South. They are one of the better teams in the AFC. They're not as elite, obviously, as Kansas City without Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, but they're clearly the most complete team heading into this matchup with a defensive-minded coach, DeMeco Ryans. Look for him to dial up some packages to confuse Aaron Rodgers. Can only look Texans in this matchup.
Ooh, and that kind of makes me question the total thing again and potentially eyeing that under. But regardless, I think we're in for plenty great football tonight. Most importantly, though, the party continues because In-Game Live is coming up next, where Joe joins Kevin as well as Donnie to continue to give you all the best odds and angles to gauge as you're watching this matchup. We've had the candy conversation too. What is the top taker of this?
You can't get me. No carbs, no sugar. I would do the candy corn if I had to, if pressed.
Really?
Yeah, if I had to. But
of
yeah.
all the candies?
No candies. No
Oh my gosh, candy
no
corn's
candy,
like in
no
the
candy.
Twizzler. That's like in the Twizzler boat for me. I can't touch a Twizzler. Anyway, stick around for In-Game Live coming up with Joe Lisi as well as Donnie right side and Kevin Walsh. You don't want to miss the action. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great live bets to consider and jump on, so make sure you stay with us here on SportsGrid TV for this Thursday night matchup. Now it's time to toss it over to In-Game Live.
To game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only